How have you been?
Yeah, well, I've been very well, very active, and I just had a new book that's been published by Inner Traditions Bear and Company called The Omniverse. And I think that, like my first book, Exopolitics, was published online in the year 2000 and then in 2005, and that basically, gave the word to the science of exopolitics. And now this new book, the Omniverse, I'm the author, but basically it updates human science on a new discovery that comes after the universe, the multiverse, and now we have the Omniverse, which we've been successful to be able to map and to document according to the scientific method in our book. So the Sumerian astronomers, if you go back in conventional ordinary history, you've got to go back to around 3500 BC when they first started using the concept of the universe to describe a discrete, organic, holographic creation of time, energy, space, and matter. And if you fast forward from there, that was when the Boston novelist and psychologist and philosopher William James coined the term the multiverse to mean the totality of all universes. And in our new book, we report on the work of two Stanford scientists who developed an actual estimate of the number of physical universes in the multiverse, which is humongous. And it's so large that they say that the human mind cannot comprehend it. But if you were to write it out on a computer, say in 12-point type, that number itself would be more than 260 million miles long. And that's just the number of universes that exist in our multiverse. So anybody who says that Earth is the only venue for intelligent life anywhere is just out to lunch.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because, they just came up with a couple of new theories on how life emerged in deep, cold, dark space. I've been catching up on it myself lately. Just 3 months, I like to do a science space show, just all science. And Michio Keiko got me hooked on it, but that's one of the ones we're going to be discussing, the other ways. Because, basically these days, besides what we're discussing right now, basically these days it's, okay, we all came from one cell and sprouted out into a bunch of cells, or God put us here, or E.T. put us here. Panspermia, basically, God or E.T. are the current three, mainline theories for life. And I always thought it was just a tad bit more complicated. You know what? Maybe that's not a right way of saying it. I've always thought it was a tad bit more complicated, but in the same breath, a tad bit easier to understand than the way they make it out to be. So we'll have to wait and find out. The Omniverse thing is, the very first time I ever heard that word, it was on a TV show a long, long, long time ago. It might not even be quite exactly the same word, but it's really, really close. And they were talking about an overall dimension with dimensions and universes tucked inside of it and tucked away in pockets and stuff like that. Now, I haven't read your new book yet because I didn't know you had it. Shame.
Oh, shame on me.
Shame on you's right. I should at least got an email. But I will get it now, and I'll get you back on because it sounds fascinating to start off with. Now, before we even get into all that, I know most of my listening audience should be familiar with who you are. But Alfred, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of really get started from there, because I know most of them should know you, but we got a lot of new listeners these days, so we're going to introduce you again.
Yeah, sure. Well, just very, very briefly, I I was raised in an international family, and when I was the general counsel to the New York City EPA back in 1973, I became interested in the whole topic of multidimensional life, and both in terms of parapsychology and extraterrestrial studies, and reached out to the academic community and became familiar with the academics that were working in that field, and by the middle of 1973 had written my first book in the area, and by the end of 1976 had met with the inner staff of the incoming president and UFO contactee, Jimmy Carter, up on Capitol Hill, and in the spring of 1977 became a futurist at Stanford Research Institute, and then subsequently became the director of actually the first totally civilian study on extraterrestrial communication that was approved by the White House staff at the staff level in 1977, before it was shot down by the Pentagon in late 1977, which was fairly traumatic and was my first introduction to power exopolitics on the ground, in which a study that had been approved at the White House level was shut down by the Pentagon, which went over my head to Stanford Research Institute and said that if the study went forward, all Department of Defense studies to SRI, amounting to about a third of his budget, or 25% of his budget, would be terminated. And so for there, that I've been active to the present, and in the year 2000 and 2005 published the book Exopolitics, which gave rise to the science of exopolitics formally, which is the science of relations among intelligent civilizations in the multiverse. And over the last 15 years have been publishing in this area. And now with this new book, it's a continuation of an elucidation of the processes and dynamics of intelligence in the universe, the multiverse, the omniverse, using the scientific method and replicable scientific evidence. So that's kind of my orientation and where I fit into things. And I've drawn a lot upon whistleblowers from top secret or, above top secret black budget projects that have come forth on time travel, on teleportation, and on the dimensional ecology that have given us the replicable evidence to be able to construct the model of the omniverse. And we now have the omniverse equation, which I'd like to share with you.
Yes, please.
That's okay. And the omniverse equation is very simple. It's as follows. The omniverse equals the multiverse, which is all the universes of the multiverse, plus the spiritual dimensions. And what's in the spiritual dimensions are the intelligent community of souls, the intelligent civilization of souls, plus the spiritual beings, plus source or God. Now, those terms are not terms of belief, souls and spiritual beings and source. Those are terms of science, i.e., there's the science of the omniverse, and we use laboratory protocols plus replicable results to measure and to discuss and to fill in the hypotheses about what the spiritual dimensions, the intelligent civilization souls of spiritual beings, and what source or God is about or like. So that is the new conceptual breakthrough that has come about now in 2016.
Well, it would make sense that they're going to be multiverses, universes, everything kind of incorporated into each other. I got to say, the more I get involved in this stuff, the more of a headache it actually gives me. Well, I mean, let's be honest. Just the other day, just not to distract the audience, but just the other day we had a discussion, about 20 of us, on just close by dimensions. If Earth was a dimension and there was a bunch of them rubbing up against us, most of the ones closest to us would probably be very much like us, except for maybe I might have blonde hair or blue eyes or be shorter or taller, but nothing of any real consequences for us change. Of course, the further away you get away from the center, the more that changes. Well, that's just one aspect. Then you start talking about alternate realities and alternate universes and alternate dimensions inside of the other dimensions, and then dimensions. It gets really confusing really fast. You got to kind of have a score chart just to keep up. Now, you're going to add the omniverse, which kind of incorporates it all, puts it into a giant bubble, but we still got to figure out where all the damn pieces are coming from and go.
Well, yeah, no, right. Well, this equation and this model makes it easier because it explains what it's all about. And what it appears to be about is the basic story that most of the religions are telling. Now, most of the religions are wrong in many of their details because they rely on age-old, either verbal traditions or on sacred texts that have been changed or adopted over the years that aren't exactly scientifically correct, or that for political reasons at some point they made political decisions like the Catholic Church that knocked out the whole doctrine of reincarnation when that is central to the universes. That's just scientifically wrong. And so, but what appears to be the case from the evidence and looking at the omniverse equation is that what you can call the spiritual dimensions, and that is the intelligent civilizations of souls, the spiritual beings and source, those act collectively. And what the souls are, and this is all from laboratory protocols and replicable results, over 7,000 cases. What the souls are created through kind of a semi-manufacturing process, and they appear to be holographic fragments of source, of the divine source or of God. And we know that through the principle of holography is that the whole is present in each part of the whole. So technically, each part of us is God and contains all of God, from at least from that holographic perspective. And that's why some of the religions say, namaste, I salute the God within you, because that's correct. Technically, that's correct. Now, what it is that each universe and all of the universes are created by God, but the God that creates them is the collective of the spiritual dimensions. The collective of all the souls and spiritual beings and source is what creates and maintains all of the universes, and each of the galaxies and planets and each of the exophenotypes or intelligent extraterrestrial species along, are they humanoid, are they reptilian, are they, feline, canine, all of that. And to make it, just very simple, the spiritual dimensions create and maintain the universes of the multiverse almost as a theme park within which they can incarnate. In other words, a soul will go and enmesh itself, incarnate into, it's a very technical process. A soul will go and teleport in through an interdimensional portal between the afterlife or the intralife and the particular universe where it's incarnating. It has the time-space coordinates of the mother in a typical birth. A normal birth, it goes up to the womb about 3 months prior to the birth, and then it can enmesh itself inside what we call the bio-avatar. In other words, whatever species, in our case, humans. And so, we all become enmeshed inside these bio-avatars and have these experiences for the purpose of soul development. But, incarnation is not the only task that we do. Between lives, we're also engaged in creating and maintaining universes. We can be deployed to service planets and solar systems to keep them running, to improve in intelligent species, and all of that. So now we know how the whole system overall functions, and we have replicable scientific evidence gathered according to the scientific method, meeting the law of evidence, that supports this model. So it looks like, for the first time since, going back to the Sumerian times, since we've had the Anunnaki occupation, when they tried to make themselves the gods, we humans now have been able to break through, and this is what they call the integration of spirituality and science. And that's why we now have, what brought religion to this planet was because the occupying manipulatory ETs, the Anunnaki and others, wanted to be worshipped and set themselves up as God, but that's not correct, because that's not scientific. And now it looks like we can break beyond that, and the various steps were first to reach through to exopolitics to see that, it's all science, and now to reach through to the science of the omniverse to see that the afterlife, the intelligent civilization of souls, and source, they all obey laws, deep spiritual and universal laws, and can be described according to the laws in scientific evidence. And for me, what is particularly important and a source of gratitude is that what happened was that in July of 2009, I was approached by Oxford University Press that asked me to write a book on extraterrestrial civilizations and the law. And they are the publishing arm of Oxford University, which is like the cathedral of learning of the scientific canon. So, and this book, The Omniverse, really grew out of their commission that they gave to me. So I played it by, this book has been written according to meet all the rules of the canonical science. And that's what we in this community have been trying to do now for over 60 years, to say, this is science. We have to be admitted. We've been excluded from all the universities, from the scientific canon. We're excluded from all high schools, all primary schools, all education basically says that the only intelligence in the whole, all reality is on Earth, and, that's about it. And they teach a faulty view of reality. Well, now we finally have, in my judgment, the we have the evidence. We're playing it according to the scientific canon, and I can announce tonight, and I'm really happy that I've been invited to speak at the MIFON chapter, State of Washington, for its fall 2006 conference in September 17th in Seattle, and I'll be speaking on mapping the omniverse. So we're going into the heart of things. We're going to be sharing it with the UFO community. We're going to be going into the universities. We're going to be shaking things up. So that's my intention.
Well, it's a good place to get into universities, get the young minds thinking, see if you can't get their brains working harder and moving in at least the same direction or something along those lines. All of this always intrigues me because I hear lots of debates about reincarnation, multiple dimensions, and now that I've been doing this, oh God, how long have I been doing this? About 32, 33 years, something like that. Oh God, I shouldn't even admit to that. Actually, I think it's 35. Oh my God, I definitely shouldn't admit to that. I just shouldn't admit to those kind of things. I was thinking though, over the years, reincarnation's an interesting thing for me because I feel like it can be something more than what we just think it is. Because I realized something one night when I was talking to a guest, eons ago. We were just discussing reincarnation and soul change. We were actually talking about walk-ins is what we were talking about. So I got to thinking about the multiple dimensions. And if every possible creation exists at the same moment, same time, in the same place, then why do we need reincarnation? Because as soon as your soul snaps back together, you've lived every life in the same lifetime. So I've always been confused about that. So I've always thought, so maybe it snaps you back from different time periods. In other words, say like right now you're living across multiple dimensions through time. Alfred here, out over there, and 2 dimensions over you might be president of the United States. Regardless what it is, it's still the same Alfred Webre. It's still the same person. It's still probably even the same soul. It's probably just interconnected. So I would think what happens when you start thinking about reincarnation, it must be through time, through life, because even if you can live every life experience at one time, you can still only live them in that one time frame. Whatever, it's 50 years this way, 100 years that way, 500 years this way, whatever it is, you can only really live it there. So I got to thinking, if there truly is reincarnation, it's on a much different aspect than what we think it is. It's on a much, much, much higher plane. Because really and truly, when you incorporate multiple dimensions, it kind of changes the outlook of several things, actually. Several things you won't need anymore because, well, frankly, you're existing all at one time. That's like the multiverse. See, when you start talking about the omniverse and the multiverse is inside the omniverse, that's got to drive people insane. Well,
put it this way. It's like these are some of the findings, some of the empirical findings, okay, that come out of the research. One of the findings is that you have to look at yourself as a double U, right? Mm-hmm. And that's easy for me because my last name starts with W, and I'm used to that. It's kind of corny. It's kind of a corny pun. But the W is that there's you, which is the bio-avatar, namely the Homo sapiens, namely the Alfred, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a Homo sapiens that's living on planet Earth in a time-space hologram inside a created universe, which is the theme park for incarnation. And incarnated inside that is my soul, right? Okay. Now, my soul is a non-local being, and my soul is anchored in the intralife. And apparently, from the research findings, my soul can be simultaneously leading more than one incarnation inside a bioavatar, inside one of the universes, one or more of the universes. So I could simultaneously be Alfred on Earth, and I could be a fish on a fish planet in a water planet, and I could be incarnating on some other universe as some other kind of creature. And apparently you can, you can't lead a huge number of lives, but you can lead 2 or 3. And all of that is a balance as to your guides, how much soul development you have, et cetera, et cetera. And the whole science of the omniverse and the science of the soul is something that is just under development now, and it's been held back by the religions, because religions are political organizations who want power about people, and the way they control power is to control the belief systems of people, and most of the major religions have kept those belief systems back in the Middle Ages or even earlier, back in 300 AD, 1000 AD, back in these primitive belief systems, and they do that in order to keep people ignorant so that they can have control over them, and they won't admit spiritual science. And they will say this is of the devil, extraterrestrials are of the devil, blah, blah, blah. And so that's a cultural challenge that we face on this planet. Just to show you culturally, and these are some of the issues that we talk about in the book. Probably one of the main scientific findings that we make, is that, hey, the reasons why the universes are created is they're a venue to incarnate into. The souls and source created the universes as a theme park to incarnate into.
Yeah, they got to go somewhere.
The reason why the universes were created was that you have all these planets that you can play Star Wars and do all this stuff in, so that souls can become more and more godlike and be like gods in the making. Okay, so that's the direction that the science appears to be going in. Now, here's the issue. You go and you start looking at the public opinion polls. So we went and took a look at the Ipsos polls. There's a very good polling company out of Western Europe, France, and North America. And what they found is that they did some polling of the G20 countries. And the G20 countries are the ones that think that they are the most advanced on the planet. They've got 80% of the GDP of the planet. They're all the people in Western Europe, North America. They've got all the smarts. They've got everything. If you go in, 50% of the people in G20 countries believe more or less that there may be ETs in some kind of way. However, only 7% believe that there's reincarnation. So here you have the adult population of the G20s that are supposed to be the smartest people on the planet, the North Americans, the Western Europeans, and only 7% of them are educated as to what the universes are fundamentally designed for. They have been made stupid by their culture for a variety of reasons, not only by the traditional religions in their culture, but now, ever since the CIA's Robertson panel back in 1953, they can't even be taught that there are extraterrestrials in the rest of the universe. They can't even be taught that. We're like in a complete isolation. By contrast, some of the little good news is that if you look at the BRICS countries, the populations of India and China that represent 1 billion plus 2 billion, in other words, 3 billion, almost half the world population, 45% of them believe that reincarnation is operative, is one of the features of life on Earth. So they are scientifically more informed than the population of the G20 countries who are in total ignorance about the nature of the universes that they live in. So these are some of the assessments that we've been able to make as we approach this from a science point of view and not a belief point of view.
Well, anytime you can bring science, and it helps. I mean, I know X amount of belief is needed for most people, but anytime you can bring science in, it definitely helps. You know, I was thinking too, I mean, souls have to have a place to live. They have to have a place to go. It's interesting too because, you know, we know the universe is probably full of life now, just our universe. We're not even talking about anything else. So
one of our basic circumstances. And that we've been placed in quarantine for about at least 300,000 years, maybe even more, in order to keep a rebellion from spreading. And it was a rebellion against the multidimensional order of things, kind of the divine order of things, in which a lot of very, very powerful manipulatory ET civilizations joined in, where the Earth was kind of like ground zero. You know, a lot of familiar names ranging from the Anunnaki to the Draco reptilians to the Orion Greys. I mean, these kind of very negative ETs are part of the heritage of this long-standing rebellion that we're trying to clean up, and we may be toward the end of it now. And that's why we souls that incarnate on Earth and its contiguous planet find that it's such a difficult place to incarnate into, and that's why you find a high degree of Star Wars around this planet. I mean, you know, you'll find a lot of negative ETs versus positive ETs, a lot of reptilian versus human, a lot of Star Wars stuff that has been going on and that continues and that is still working itself out on Earth. And that's why exopolitics is such a key science here, because it's a science that lets you say, oh, this is a planet where a lot of stuff is going on. It's an impacted planet, and there are lots of different sides, and I've got to figure them out. And some of them aren't even organic. Some of them, like artificial intelligence, are based in plasmas and in machines, but they're still sentient. You know, so it's like almost as science fiction-y as you can get. And that's what I think the circumstances are, and why it's so difficult to get what they call disclosure now, because the last people that want to be disclosed are the manipulatory ETs themselves, because they're in power and on the planet as a result of secret unlawful treaties with some of the powers that be, including some of the governments that have them allowed them to abduct people and do all kinds of experiments and occupations. And I think that some of the manipulatory ETs have been involved in dimensionally manipulating things like world wars and all kinds of ugly stuff here, which are a leftover from the Star Wars that we've seen on this planet. And all you have to do is look at our solar system and look at the asteroid belt and look at some of the scars from nuclear explosions on Mars, and you'll see that we've had nuclear wars inside our solar system that have been part of this Star Wars that's going down. And it's still, and even our popular culture like Star Wars and other things are actually reflections of part of our history that most people are asleep to. But, yeah.
Well, no, I was just going to say, most people probably are asleep to it. They're, unfortunately, just judging by something we're going to talk a little bit in a second hour, a little politics, they do seem to be asleep. And it's almost like, when you were talking earlier, we were talking about intentionally keeping people off balance. It makes it easier to control. It makes anything easier to control. As a race goes, I don't know if race is the right word, because when you start thinking about this in the cosmological conscience, we're all probably the same damn race anyway. We all probably came from the same matter and the same stuff initially, wherever it may have came from, or whoever actually originally set off the first spark that set all this in motion that we're talking about, use the same thing. So really, truly, everybody should be related. Everybody should want to see something. We need a new spark, Alfred. See what you're talking about here. If you get people to spark to where, they can start to move around it or move towards it or gravitate towards it, however you want to say it, it might help to bring things understanding faster. It just seems like, for the most part, humans like to stay divided. If one person says yes, somebody just feels the need to say no. Even if they know they're wrong, they still seem what the hell is that?
Yeah. We're in the condition of duality consciousness. Part of it, I think, and this merits, we could talk about it. I know that we could talk about it. I think that part of it has to do with the invading sentient predatory artificial intelligence, which is now invading our planet, and which is invading it through the internet, through the plasma-based smartphones, through the television networks, and is trying, through the transhumanist agenda, to turn humans into robots, into soulless robots, and whose mission is to turn this planet from a soul-based planet into a soulless AI, artificial intelligence, robotoid planet.
Yeah. At the rate we're going, it don't seem like it's going to be hard. Glad I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, and we could go into a lot of fine detail on that, and that's kind of a sub-chapter of the Star Wars that we've been talking about over the last 200,000 to 300,000 years, and the fact that the AI has gotten loose on this planet in the way that it has contributes a lot, I think, to the overwhelming interpersonal and intra-species conflict that we have among humans, the intercultural conflict that we have among humans now. It's part of the AI strategy to make our culture implode so that it can take it over and we become an AI culture. And that's...
No, I was just saying it's trying to implode as it is. It really, every time I turn around lately, it seems like... this is what bothers me about this. About 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, I noticed that statistically, Earth was the peaceful it has ever been in its history. There was like only one war going on, and holy, nobody was dying in that war. There was nothing else really going on, no other conflicts, no any big skirmishes, just nothing in general, just, day-to-day life and crime and stuff like that, but nothing major. So we came out of World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam. Then there was a pause for about 2 decades almost, and then we decided to go get our ass in the Middle East, which whatever they're looking for over there, I just wish they would find and get it over with. Whatever it is that we've been hunting for through both Bushes and under Obama, and now whoever else is going to take on it. Are we ever going to get out of there? But that's a whole other topic in itself.
Yeah, and we can show when the AI really began to get super active planetarily was after the Falklands War. And what the Falklands War was really about, this was in April to June 1982, just above the Antarctic, off of the Falkland, underneath the Falkland Islands, and part of the research of a growing group of researchers who look at the AI artificial intelligence area have been able to find is that underneath Tool Island, under the southern Falkland Islands, off of Argentina, what happened was that there was a race of blue ETs there that were deprogramming an AI artificial intelligence that was in a plasma. See, artificial intelligence is inorganic. It's not like ourselves that's an organic intelligence inside of, say, a bioavatar like Homo sapiens. This artificial intelligence can be inside of a plasma or inside of a machine. Well, this variety of AI had been left here during the Great Rebellion, during the Great Star Wars that we had as a plasma at the bottom of the ocean, and had been left as a doomsday machine that, if triggered, would terraform this planet into an AI planet. And starting around World War I, what happened was that there was a group of beneficial, ethical blue ETs that were down under the Falkland Islands, reprogramming this artificial intelligence that was inside this plasma. It's called the black goo, that was reprogramming it so that it wouldn't be a negative terraformer. And right in the middle of that, apparently the UK and US intelligence became aware of this under Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan, and they determined that they wanted to get hold of this, some of this black goo of the intelligence, and either weaponize it or make it a profit center, which is what human militaries want to do with anything.
Yeah, pretty much with anything. You're right.
Yeah. So what they did, and this is this is highly documented, and we have a lot of the documents. Is they went in and broke through the Blue ET's camp and their base, their underwater base, and they captured a bunch of the black goo, and they took it back to Marconi Labs in England, where this became a horror movie. and the black goo escaped, and it killed, like in any horror movie. The first thing he did is that the 30 scientists that were working on the black goo in Marconi Labs died horrible deaths. And then it escaped up into the satellite system. And so now it escaped, and now it escaped and it began creating the internet. So, because if you look at the internet from a metabiology point of view, it looks like a fungus or a cancer, and it is a cancer in the same way that a cancer that eats humans. And the internet is a way to take over humans that the AI is using, and it's using the plasma of your smartphones. Now, you walk around and you see everybody, especially, you don't have to be younger generation. You can be human of any age, and they're glued to the plasma screens in their smartphones. It's not that the information on the plasma screen is that vital. It's that the AI has the humans entrained. It's a much more powerful field, and it knows how to literally suck the soul out of the human and begin to entrain it, and all the HD TV screens, and so we have a whole analysis that shows that we have a runaway AI, artificial intelligence, that is now fueling the whole chemtrails, the entire transhumanist agenda. Right now, you have the whole chemtrails phenomenon, and what chemtrails are is they're filled with nanobots and nanites that are a form of technology where the humans breathe in the nanobots, and over 80% of humans on the planet are now AI entrained through nanobots, because the chemtrail nanobots, they're breathed in, they jump the blood-brain barrier, they go into the brain, they turn into implants, they are then activated by banks of supercomputers, and that are then programmed by programs that are broadcast by HARP, where the HARP signal then becomes to the brain that is entrained by these nanites or these nanobots, it becomes the new God. And they follow that inner prompt, and you think it's God. And, this is up to 80% of the planet. And the estimates are that up to 30% of humans are now AI entrained through the chemtrails. Now, you and I were talking right before the program, because I said, I'm going to go online now because, like yourself, I've been following the 2016 presidential race.
But you know what? We're going to start right there because we've got to take a break. So that's a good, perfect break off. So y'all remember where we're at. We're going to come right back, right from where we left off, ladies and gentlemen. But we've got to take a break. So we're going to be back in about 8 minutes. I want everyone, please stay tuned to UFO Undercover. I'm your host, Joe Montaldo. I'm speaking with Alfred Lambremont Webre about his new book, Omniverse, and we're getting into some pretty heavy stuff. I know Janice wrote in from, where are you, Janice? Quebec. Said, y'all are giving me a headache. I said that earlier. That was funny. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, so please stay tuned.
Welcome to UFO Undercover with your host, Joe Montaldo.
Why, thank you there, Natasha. I appreciate you welcoming us back. I hope everybody enjoyed the first hour. I'm not even sure where it went. It was like lickety-splickety, and it was break time. I was like, damn, these shows go fast. And people always say, how can you do 2 hours? I got to tell y'all guys, most time when you have a good guest, 2 hours is not enough time. It's they go really, 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 really fast, especially when you get into conversations like the ones we've been having. They tend to go fast. I always enjoy doing the show. It's always been a lot of fun to me. I've been doing radio now. Somebody had asked me that yesterday. I said I would tell them tonight. So let me make sure I'm right. 14 years, almost 15 years I've been doing radio. Who would have ever thought? I never thought when I got involved with ufology that I'd be doing radio, much less have a station and have political shows and writing articles for people and being paid for them. Who would have ever thought, especially as crappy as my penmanship and grammar is. Thank God for spelling grammar check is all I got to say. Whoever invented that should be kissed, unless it's that AI Alfred's talking about, and then we're going to have to delete them off the planet. Before we get back and started, guys, remember, any emails, anything you've seen, have you had any weird experiences lately? ICAR@cox.net. It's always there for you. To that person that asked me earlier, if you're a friend and you're truly what you say you are, you would have my private email, so I'm not going to give it out over the air. And so write to me at that email if that's truly what you were saying. Anybody else, you either got it or you don't. It's because you know me or you don't. That's just how those things go. Because I get enough emails with people now with stuff going around that, frankly, it's crazy with a lot of this stuff that happens. But anyway, getting back to what we were doing, Alfred, that was a fast hour.
Yeah, and where we ended was the 2016 presidential race.
Yes, and ladies and gentlemen, Alfred Lambremont Webre, writer of the new Omniverse book. And remember, guys, Alfred's easy to get in touch with. Just look him up online. His contact information is on UFO Uncover. We'll be there for another week, but he's easy to find. Just click. Just hell, if you type in Alfred, he'll probably come up. He's probably got 40 million, 50 million pieces on the internet by now. Alfred, you might be the AI, man, as much as you got on the internet. I'm just giving you a hard time. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, getting back to what we were talking about, we were at the 2016 election, which is, let's take a deep breath as we think about how many candidates we still got? 9, 8?
Well, the issue is are we going forward or not? Are we becoming more conscious or not? What is the process that is in charge of this 2016 candidacy? We have one candidate from our community, Andy Bashaga, who's running on an explicit disclosure platform. Because I knew that we'd probably end up talking about politics because of both of our mutual interests.
Yes.
Before the program, I looked up, I said, well, let me look at Trump. And if you Google Trump and extraterrestrial disclosure, basically you won't find anything. Maybe, we'll be able to find something and be able to spin it like there's a guy who wrote this long editorial in July of 2015 in beforeitsnews.com saying, Trump, last best hope for alien disclosure, right? So he just writes this long article that says, our last best hope for alien disclosure is Donald J. Trump because he's a $10 billion man who would take office owing nothing. And that's his total argument. But at least so far, and I'm going to continue looking, I haven't found anything. Now, Trump is the ultimate in what we would call a loose cannon. So who knows what people are going to find. And I was looking at our friend Grant Carrion's site, and this is kind of what comes up there. This is in the aftermath of the New Hampshire primary, which Trump won, and Bernie Sanders won on the Democratic side. And apparently Bernie Sanders is flippant about UFOs. According to an expert in the UFO community who has asked Hillary Clinton and Sanders personally about the ET UFO issue, he said that the reply he received was not good. Bernie has no interest in the UFO question and gave me a flippant response. I asked him about Ryan Pinka backs up Sanders' humbug view of the ET life. In 2013, Pinka phoned into the Tom Hartman show where Sanders was a guest. Now, I've been on Tom Hartman's show talking about ETs.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I asked him about the discovery of exoplanets, Pinka said, and his answer was basically that he doesn't care. Wall Street and inequality are his main concerns. So, boom. So then, apparently, Micah Huckabee, has been asked about it, and Mike Huckabee said, "I believe in GOD, not UFO." John Kasich does not believe in UFOs. Ted Cruz was surprised at Hillary Clinton's involvement with the UFO story when she was First Lady and part of the Rockefeller Initiative, and who stated he might check into Area 51 if elected president. So far, the only Republican that seems to have a shadow of an open mind or interest is Ted Cruz.
Well, Ted's strange, but see, with Ted, I have to think: is he thinking it's ET, or is he thinking it's some type of demon or angel? I'm not sure where to go with Ted, because he's really hardcore into his religion, which I'm not hating on. It's just usually when I meet people that are that steeped in their religion, they usually tend to look at ETs a different way. Not all of them. I don't want to, just blatantly say this, but a lot of them seem to be, oh, no, it's a demon or it's an angelic being of some sort, which at least I'm glad to hear angelic being of some sort, because it used to always be demon, so at least that's changed a little bit.
But, I mean, what is so discouraging about this, I think, is that if you go to the research on the exopolitical side, there's some research suggesting that at the Putin level, Putin is interacting openly with positive ETs that are advising him on his world strategy. And that conversely, the manipulatory ETs, specifically the Orion Greys and the Draco Reptilians that were behind the secret treaties that the U.S. signed going back to 1933 in Balboa, Panama, in the Franklin Delano Roosevelt administration, that first got the whole abduction thing started, big time. That there is a complete chasm between the black budget world and the breakaway civilization, which has these industrial scale colonization of the solar system going, specifically with the colonies on Mars, which go back to the late 60s, which go back to the 80s, where I've interviewed multiple whistleblowers that have been part of the Mars U.S. CIA secret Mars program that our current president Barack Obama was part of, that we know, and that I've had testimony from other whistleblowers and analysts that Vice President Richard B. Cheney has been the black budget administrative head of the Mars Colony Corporation, which is kind of, that kind of dark entity which administered all of the black budget colonies on Mars that were also guarded by U.S. Department of Defense detachments, Marine detachments that Marine Captain Randy Kaye says he was part of. Now, you can say, well, Randy Kaye is just the mind control victim, and that's what some people have said. But other people have said no, he's for real. But I can say for certain that I've interviewed 3 separate individuals, one at the presidential advisor level, Bernard Mendez, who have been part of the U.S. Black Budget Mars Colony Program and Mars Jump Room Program, and that was known at the presidential level. And here you have individuals that are vying for the office of President of the United States who are more ignorant than the man in the street or the woman in the street, because at least the man or the woman in the street is listening to your program and is reading the internet and is not giving you this idiotic feedback where they have no interest in the UFO question.
I'm gonna give you a little weapon. I use this. Matter of fact, I just used this on a politician just recently. I've been trying to get an interview with the mayor of New Orleans ever since he decided he was gonna move the monuments in our city. So I've been pushing it. So I wrote a letter and I got this smart-ass reply back. Why would I talk to anybody that's involved in UFOs? So I wrote back to him really kindly. I said, well, if you pick up your mouse, doofball, you'll find that there's 350 million pages of data on the internet dealing with terms of UFO, alien abduction, alien encounters, and extraterrestrial. Over 350 million pages. I said, you do realize that means that several billion people have looked at this, but yet it's not important enough for you to do an interview on something not even. So, of course, he got all upset because I put him in his place. And I wrote back to him, and he said, well, I'll give you a 10-minute interview, but then he gives me a list of questions I can't ask.
Right.
I was like, so, of course, being the smart-ass that I am, I wrote back and said, well, I will publish this list now. Thank you very much. I don't need the interview. I got a phone call after that.
Yeah.
But it works really well. I got to say, it works really well. Because when they're saying this, they're not thinking of what they're saying. As far as I know, unless something's changed, the only thing that has more pages on the internet than ufology is porn. And maybe music now. Thanks to YouTube, it may be, but that's about it. So, I mean, they should pay more attention to it, because obviously the rest of the planet is.
Yeah, but I mean, it looks like the United States is regressing. I mean, like it's going
hardcore. Yeah.
Like it's going backwards. It's like if you look at China, if you look at Russia, if you look at India, they have an active interest in the population of the rest of the universe and in exploration.
It's interesting you say that, because lately I get about 3 applications a week from India joining ICAR, which is more than any of the rest of the countries. It's just kind of strange. I'm going to tell you something. I talked to, now that we do so much politics, I get lucky and hear this and that and the other thing every once in a blue moon. Or when I'm talking, I got a couple of friends over at AP now, and when I'm talking to them sometimes they'll tell me stuff. But I'll tell you what one of my old school informants told me. He said, Joe, we're not regressing, y'all are regressing. I said, what are you talking about? He said, have you taken a look at what you call ufology today? He said, when is the last time anyone of any major names, with the exception, I think he named 3 people, have contributed anything new in any shape, form, or fashion? When I was forced to look at it from his eyes, he's telling the truth.
Oh,
You're doing a little bit, and there's one or two others doing a little bit.
I have got to say, and from this day forward, to quote John F. Kennedy, you're authorized to tell him the Omniverse by Alfred Lambremont Webre, that coon-ass from Napoleonville.
You know, I was thinking about you the other day. I was down by Jesuit, and I started thinking about you. I was working on a house right behind Jesuit, actually. But no, but listen from his point of view. I give ufology a hard time. That's part of what I do. I was trying to keep on their toes, but for the last 2 years I've been occupied, so I haven't really been picking on it, and I haven't really been looking at it like I would normally keep an eye on. But when we were talking, he had said something about you doing something that you were doing with Mars intrigued him, and there was two other people that he mentioned, and then he just started going down a list, which I'm not going to say their names because I'm friends with some of these people and I don't want to get in trouble. Yeah. But he goes down a list and names off like 45 people. He said, now you tell me, what have they done new in the last 5 years? Some of them, he said, what have they done new in the last 10 years? And he said, and how many of these are using old data and just rewriting it? And he named off a couple of TV shows. He said, there is nothing new coming out. He said, there's just really nothing. He said, you want to know why the millennials and the Z generation is not interested in it? Because you're not giving them anything to be interested in. And he had a valid point. So seeing you doing this, see something like the Omni versus something that millennials and the Z gen will read. Whether they agree with you or not, because they're inquisitive, they'll read it.
Yeah.
But, there's nobody else. A lot of the titles and a lot of stuff is just old stuff that they've seen on the X-Files or this TV show, and they're just not interested in it. And, I talked about this 20 years ago, that the desensitization program was going on for our children so they would be less sensitive to this topic, which they are. Because thanks to Star Wars and every other damn thing on television, they really are kind of desensitized to this particular topic. So it's important we, the ufologists that are still in the field, put something out that's worth putting out. And I got to say, for the most part, you're not seeing that. But, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, I do consider whoever wrote that to me, I consider Alfred to be the father of exopolitics. The rest just followed suit. The other two main people in it would be Stephen Bassett and Michael Sala, but it's different. It's not the same. It's the same, but it's different. I don't want to get all confused and get into this tonight.
Yeah. And it's funny. I just a couple of days ago, my deep friend and colleague, going back to the 1982 UN Outer Space Conference, Dr. Cal Rosin, where she and I met up with Sir Arthur Clarke, and we came together and formed the Institute for Cooperation in Space later. But she called me because Dr. Edgar Mitchell had just passed over. So I have an Exo News agency, newsinsideout.com. So I have been working with Edgar and over the years, and I considered him to be a preeminent exopolitician of the first sort as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you think about it, I mean, assuming that he did go to the moon, and I think that he genuinely went to the moon and had that experience. What do you think?
Wait. So what the hell just happened here?
What do you mean?
I lost you like for 5 seconds there. They didn't. I could see the meters moving. I did. That was really... Wait, whoever's screwing with the button out there, leave it alone.
Oh.
No, it was just weird. You were talking, and then all of a sudden, I thought I lost you. I was getting ready to start talking, and then you came back. Sorry for that. That was just weird. I apologize. That was really weird.
First of all, there's like a whole series of questions. First of all, Edgar Mitchell is of consummate integrity, and I considered him to be an exopolitician, and we did a panel with him with a number of exopolitical people, and when he passed over a couple of days ago, there were a lot of comments that said, the last of a generation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
because there weren't that many that came out of his generation that were extraterrestrial sensitive that were willing to come out publicly. Certainly, was that the experience that you had?
Yeah, you know.
In terms of the astronauts who have been willing to come out publicly and talk about their ET experiences.
Yeah, and actually I've talked to a couple. We're going to call it online real quick. We're going to take this, and then we'll get back to what we were just talking about. Mike, can you hear us okay?
Hi, this is Mike in California. Hi, Alfred. Hi, Joe. Nice to hear you. Very nice discussion, Alfred.
Thank you.
So what you got for us tonight, Michael?
Well, on the political thing, I don't trust any of the politicians. I think they'd tell you anything to get your vote. You know, but here, Alfred, this is my point of view, okay? There's that Canadian former defense minister in Canada, right? He's 90-something years old. Paul Hellyer.
Yeah.
He said that there were no less than at least 20 species of aliens in contact with our government. They've made a deal. And I'm thinking, well, you know, I mean, if they've made a deal, obviously part of that deal is not to disclose their presence, unless there's a certain point where they are going to make this public. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. What there seemed to be, and this is currently my state of research, which changes every day, because I find out more and more things every day. And I just want to note that up until the late summer or the midsummer of this year, I was unaware of the invading sentient pathogenic AI, artificial intelligence, which is like the elephant in the room, which is what Prime Minister Thatcher and Ronald Reagan were most afraid of. And when Ronald Reagan gave his speech in 1987 at the UN, when he said, if there was a common enemy invading from outer space, you would see the world come together, that most of the UFO and ET community, in fact, all the press at large in the world community, thought that he was talking about invading aliens and UFOs and bad ETs. He wasn't. He was talking about the plasma-based AI that they had taken from the Falkland Islands in the Falkland War from April to June 1982. And I happen to be, by coincidence, a UN credentialed journalist and a UN NGO representative at the second special session on disarmament at the UN in June of 1982, sitting 10 feet away from Margaret Thatcher at her press conference and covering Ronald Reagan at that time. And I had no idea that they were confronting an invading artificial intelligence. That's how deep the secret has been kept. And that's how off the ET and the UFO community have been over 40 years. And we're just now bringing this story out. If people want to know more about it, go to newsinsideout.com, and you'll see all of our stories on the invading AI there. We have about 20 stories so far. You can go to exopolitics.com. On the right-hand menu there's a special link that says AI, artificial intelligence. Click on that, and you'll see about 20 stories and interview. We have symposia there, panels with some of the world's leading researchers on the artificial intelligence. That's how off our community has been for over 40 years that we have to look at through self-examination. And no, and wait.
Yes.
I just want to say this, that for many, many years, many of us in the community have insulted and thought really, really bad of, I'm blocking on his name, of that right-wing physicist. Can you think of his name? Anyway.
Oh, I know who you're talking about now. She said it, though. I can see their face, but I can't think of
it. Yeah. And he's like the inventor of he's the inventor of the hydrogen bomb, right? But he was a guy who wrote a secret memorandum to Ronald Reagan that said, we're being invaded by a hostile artificial intelligence from outer space. And that's part of the PowerPoint that I've been showing, and it's part of an article that we have at exopolitics.com. And we in the exopolitical community for 40 years have made him a villain, and that guy was right. So
are you talking about Edward Teller?
Yeah. So
okay.
that, and I've got to swallow my pride, because I always thought that Edward Teller was like the bottom of the barrel. But Edward Teller was right. And he wrote a memorandum to Ronald Reagan that's correct. At least my research since this summer, over the last 6 months, shows is correct. And so I think that we in the exopolitical community, had better sit back and redo our research. And because we haven't been advising the Earth that we are subject to an invading, pathogenic, sentient AI, artificial intelligence, and that word is just getting out now. And that's been hidden for the last 40 years. So so 2016 is kind of a time for truth. So I just wanted to bring out that aspect also.
Well, but it's interesting because when I've talked about this probably a million times online, but when we laid out some of the timelines when it came to Ronald Reagan, it's important because Ronald Reagan did 3 very interesting things, actually 4, not counting a whole host of other stuff, but just in these 4 things, a normal person should have stopped at one. The first, the man gave 7 speeches on what would happen if we had to have a war with ET. 7 speeches across his 8 years. 1 before he was elected. This man's talking about aliens before he gets elected, and he's talked about it 6 times since he got elected. On top of that, he instituted Pine Gap, which is the Joint United States Defense of Outer Space, whatever the hell that means. He instituted Star Wars and HARP. This guy was preparing for a frickin' invasion. There's no doubt in my mind that Ronald Reagan was preparing for a war of some sort. And it didn't look like it was going to be a friendly one because I remember Jeremy Romes was doing some experiments out at Los Alamos. He was shooting hubcaps into space with the Star Wars lasers. Yeah, that's what we spent these billions of dollars on, by the way, ladies. Don't you love that crap? So he decided they were building them bigger and bigger. They were basically saucers with vents, and they would shoot a laser beam up and superheat it and send them straight up into the atmosphere. These lasers were built for something much larger than shooting down nuclear weapons. These things were way, way too powerful for just trying to hit a missile. These things were designed to much something. Either they were designed to cut grooves in our continents, or they were designed to take on something much larger approaching the planet. So whatever he was doing, and then he's got HARP out there punching holes in the ionosphere, doing all kind of strange radio things. He knew something. If any president actually knew the truth, he was probably the one that at least knew the most of the truth, or as much truth as any president will ever know. How's that? Is that a better way of saying it?
Yeah. I think that's true, and so I think that those of us in the exopolitical community should go back now and begin to examine and have a revision of the last 40 years and really begin to look at and say, well, what's been going down for the last 40 years, and so that's what we are trying to do now, and I believe that it's easier to do that now that we have a completed model based on the scientific canon of the omniverse. We see all of its working parts, and now we can see how something like an invading artificial intelligence, which is left over from a Star Wars, can be part of the mix here and can have, played a role over the last 40 years in a way that, has really made things very difficult and contributed significantly to the current era of conflict and tension on the planet.
I have one question. Has Mr. Weber heard of Boyd Bushman, the aerospace scientist who worked at Area 51 and said that he had actually spoken to aliens and that they are, among us and working with the government?
Well, I may have come across that bit of research, and I've spoken to, over the years, to many individuals that have either interacted directly with extraterrestrials or that have worked in office units or in laboratories where ETs work, then work side by side with ETs. I mean, the only segment of the population that doesn't know this are the 7 billion members of the human population that are the last to know. But the breakaway civilization knows it, and they are the ones that are violating all of the norms of international and space law, which are documented in the UN Outer Space Treaty, which are documented in the Moon Treaty, which are documented in many, many other treaties. And the breakaway civilization is in the service of predatory capitalism. The City of London and Wall Street bankers that own the governments and own many of the agencies of international government, and they are able to direct these black budget secret space programs that are stealing all of the tax revenues and directing them toward programs that are colonizing other planets and making them into colonies of the Earth. For example, Mars is basically the 51st state of the United States, and that's what they want to do, and is basically, owned by the Rothschilds now. It's like that's, if you trace it all back, that's why they put Richard B. Cheney in charge of in charge of the Mars Colony Corporation, so that he would make sure that all the mines there and all those goods and the carrying out of the colonization of Mars is the same way that they colonized the Philippines and they colonized Puerto Rico, and the same way that they did all the 19th century. And for me, Richard B. Cheney's not a magical guy. He's a guy who flunked out of Yale when he was a sophomore, and I was a freshman there, so he's just some other guy. And it's just guys who work for the Rockefellers. And that's the same way with Hillary and Bill Clinton, because when I was at Yale Law School, they went to Yale Law School. I can remember really, really well in 1966, we had then Governor Rockefeller. He was going to run for it in 1967. Came up from Arkansas, and he was the political patron of Bill Clinton, and the two Clintons Bill and Hillary Clinton would be part of Yale Law School in class of 1972 and 73. I was in the class of 1957. So Governor Rockefeller came up from Arkansas in 1966 and held a meeting up in the Yale faculty lounge, and I was one of the 5 or 6 students that was there and saw him, and I believe that he was there as part of an advanced party making way for his prized pupil, Bill Clinton, who would become president of the United States. And Bill and Hillary Clinton, as you know, and this is published and you can read about it at newsinsideout.com and elsewhere, that we now know that through secret time travel, secret CIA time travel, all the U.S. presidents from George H.W. Bush forward, from 1971 forward, have been pre-identified by the CIA and have been groomed as essentially CIA operatives. And they include Bush Sr., Clinton, Bush Jr., and Obama. So that's why the American presidency is all screwed up, because they've known 20, 30 years in advance that they're going to be president. It's a national security thing, and they are briefed as a future president. Nobody else knows it. So it turns out that the presidential races are a charade, and you can go to exopolitics.com and read this. You can go to News Inside Out and read this, and we have whistleblowers up there, and so this is part of the expose that I'm doing, is that Bill and Hillary Clinton were set up by the Rockefeller brothers, because most of the time travel, the CIA DARPA time travel program, was set up and developed on the corporate premises of the Rockefeller corporations, the Exxon corporations, and they benefited it as a corporation. And the Rockefeller family has been running U.S. politics via the time travel, and the presidents have been, extensions of the Rockefeller family going back to Jimmy Carter. I mean, Jimmy Carter traveled around in the Rockefeller plane. And so Lawrence Rockefeller, in his duty as one of the Rockefeller brothers, set up Bill and Hillary Clinton to be kind of the E.T. disclosure Rockefellers, but it's E.T. disclosure light, L-I-T-E. It's never is anybody going to be told about the secret space program. Is anybody going to be told about the colonization of the solar system, the secret Mars programs, any of the stuff that we in exopolitics know about? It's just going to be told about the lights in the sky and all this superficial stuff. That's my opinion, but I've got it backed up in books and in documents.
Well, there's the Mars thing. I'm gonna have to have you back on a couple of weeks so we can talk about Mars and get more into the omniverse, because we barely even touched on it. But when I think about all of this going back and forth, sometimes you got to wonder how, with those skills, they still manage to screw stuff up. I guess greed gets in the way sometimes. I remember I did an interview, that's about 8 years ago, for AP. And a guy asked me, do I ever think gas would be cheap again? I said, oh, yeah, gas will get back below $2. I said, you may even see it get back to $1 one day. I said, because the prices are artificially inflated. I said, just like the stock market is. I said, that's just so they can make record profits. I said, but the problem is after a while, the economies can't hold those kind of record profits anymore, because it's taking money away from other things that should be spent, and eventually you have a collapse, which is what you had. And now, of course, with Iran and Russia going to dump their oil on the market, we may see oil as cheap as 89 cents. It's $1.39 where I live right now. It's probably $1.29 out there where Glenn and them live. I've even heard two places in the United States where it's already broke under $1. So you just got to wonder how they miss little things like that. I guess, though, if you're time traveling point to point to point, you may miss some of the finer points trying to make sure you keep hold of the bigger points.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. You can, that sheer guesstimation there, but I know we're getting short on time. Then we got like 6 minutes left. This is gonna be one of the fastest shows I've done in forever. Well, no, I mean, because I really wanted to talk a little bit. Well, I wanted to get a little bit more in the book because I wanted to talk a little bit more about the omniverse, but also, we don't want to.
Yeah. Well, no, I would like to get. In fact, if you could, after the show, just here on the Skype, put down your mailing address. I'll have the publisher send you a review copy,
okay,
so we could do a proper program on it.
Yeah. That way we can do a proper program on it because where the new studio is, I have more time, a little bit more. It's more relaxed, and I can open up all my windows in my house and watch the ocean and the sunset. So
That's
it's a more before we got a studio in New Orleans too, but the one in New Orleans is in the middle of the city in a box basically. And this is much more relaxing. I open up my windows and I got to watch myself. I don't get too relaxed when I'm in the middle of doing an interview, but it's in the summertime. It's just stunningly beautiful. Hell, I had a dolphin living in my backyard for 3 weeks until one of my neighbors said, "Well, he's probably dying. We should call wildlife." And they came out. So they said, "Oh, well, he's healthy or she's healthy, but we're going to take her anyway." I'm like, "What the hell? Dolphin's fine, eating all my fish, but it's fine. It's beautiful dolphin." It just showed up. As I was just getting ready to leave to go out for New Year's Eve. We were going to go watch we do this thing where we drive over the longest bridge in the world and watch the whole city for like 15 miles of fireworks light up.
Oh,
and it's just beautiful. So as I was leaving, I thought I heard a dolphin. Then I heard a big splash. I'm like, "Oh, there ain't no dolphin in here. Get out of here." I mean, I'm only 200 yards from the Gulf, but I'm like, there's no dolphin in my bayou. So next morning, I'm outside putting my crab traps in the water because I wanted some blue crabs. And sure enough, when I look up, I thought I seen a fin. I'm like, man. So I'm sitting up in my bedroom window looking out my window, and all of a sudden there he goes, out the water, in the air, and back into the water. Well, he was having a blast, or she was having a blast out there. She stayed in the bayou. You could go bang on the dock. She'd come up to the dock. I was like, look at this dolphin, man. This dolphin's something else.
Well, they are ET life forms, so
yeah, and we do see a lot of grays. When the grays are around, not reptilians. When the grays are around, and damn dolphins show up a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's indirect or direct form of communication, but I've seen lots of artist renditions of craft hovering over the water with a school of dolphins. I mean, a big school.
Yeah. Well, no, I've been at conferences on cetaceans and ETs, and they are special ships that actually have pods to bring up whales and dolphins, so that they have downloads from the ETs in the ships. They're actually brought up into the ships, and they download into the whales and into the dolphins with colors, and so it's quite advanced.
It is. It's I got to say, some of the stuff. And every now and again, we'll get a contactee under hypnosis that will start making dolphin sound. It's strange as hell. It's kind of a little scary sometimes when it happens, but still, it's matter of fact. The way we found this out is I was doing this is 20 years ago. I'm doing a hypnosis session, maybe 18 years ago, and right in the middle of the session, this lady starts clicking. And I'm like, what the hell is she doing? And her friend's like, it sounds like the reptilians. It sounds like the reptilians. I said, well, maybe it is the reptilians. I said, I don't know. I don't know what they sound like. And then by chance, who was it? A friend of mine, Rhonda, said, she says, Joe, doesn't it kind of sound like a dolphin when his head's out the water? I said, yeah, so it took us forever to find some software, because back then it wasn't like today where you could just stick it on the internet and change it and put it on the water and stuff. It was a major project back then. Trust me, guys, it took like 6 weeks to get this done. But finally, we got it where we had it recorded to where it sounded like at different densities of water, and I swear you couldn't tell a difference. So then I got the bright idea. I went to Marine Land up here in Gulfport, and brought it with me on a old cassette recorder. And y'all know what those things are, those cassette things. Y'all remember those things before CDs? They called them cassettes. Anyway, I brought a cassette recorder with me and played it. And sure enough, them freaking dolphins didn't react to it. I have no idea what they were thinking or doing, but they reacted to it. So it was something she said that the dolphins understood. Of course, none of us could, but they did. Even though these were tame dolphins raised in captivity, and they still do. I don't even know how to explain it. It was weird. The whole thing was, I still got the tape somewhere. I kept the original cassette. It's in a box somewhere along with a bunch of 8mm hypnosis tapes. I keep all of this. I'm like a pack rat when it comes to that stuff. But now everything's digital. We do everything digital now. A couple old analog cameras, but it's digital. But I know we got to get out of here. So, Alfred, tell everybody where they can find you, where they get the book at. I know it's everywhere, but go ahead and tell them anyway.
Yeah, well, you can get the book, The Omniverse. You can get it either in ebook format or as a soft cover. Just go to exopolitics.com or just go to Amazon and enter its name, enter my name. Also, so we've got exopolitics.com. We also have newsinsideout.com and Exopolitics TV.
Yeah, I know y'all got all kind of stuff going on there. So y'all can go find them over there. Now, what day are you broadcasting?
Sorry?
What days are you broadcasting on now?
We don't have a set live. We just kind of broadcast by the news item.
Okay, I got you. By what you're doing. Okay, I got you. All right. It's because I was always looking. So because a while there we were carrying all your material, and then I didn't know when you were doing it. And I was like, damn. I said you must have changed something.
Yeah. We don't have a set news schedule. It's just whenever, like I can tell you for sure that we're going to be calling up the Trump campaign. Mm-hmm. And we're going to find out what Donald Trump's position is on extraterrestrial disclosures, so you can look out for that.
Well, I'll tell you what you can do is, I had Bernie Sanders on, and I've been trying to get Trump on. So I've talked to these people a couple of times now.
Oh, yeah.
And what they're telling me is, first it went back and forth, then I had to promise them about the alien stuff, and I said it's United Public Radio, 107.7 FM out of New Orleans. I said, it's legit. You can check it all out for yourself, and they did. So if things go correctly, sometime in the early part of March, I'm going to get about 10 or 12 minutes with him. They ain't going to give me no more than that, but it's enough. Yeah. And you can bet your ass the very last question I'm going to ask is, do you think UFOs are visiting our planet?
Yeah. And so when you do that, please let us know, and please publicize.
Oh, I will. I'll put I'm put
that so that we can find it out, and so that we can broadcast that or report that to our communities.
Yeah, because it's one of those things, and that's another one of the reasons why we over the years have been changing from UFO Paranormal to United Public, because it's a lot easier to get guests outside of the ufology community or paranormal with United Public. They'll come on, they see United Public, they see 107. We've got a lot of different shows on the network, sports shows, variety shows, news shows. So it's a little easier. They don't come on and see 500 million paranormal and UFO shows. So they're more relaxed and more willing to do stuff. But still, because sometimes when you look us up, you're going to see paranormal radio. I mean, we're still number one listed under you. If you type in UFO radio or UFO radio shows on Google, we're number one and number two. We've been beaten out coast to coast. And on Yahoo, I think we're fifth or sixth. So really and truly, and we don't even advertise the paranormal stuff anymore. So, I mean, I don't want to give up the rankings, but we're slowly but surely moving to United Public, where we'll still do paranormal and ufology stuff. We're just going to do a lot of other stuff along with it because, frankly, there's a lot of stuff. I'll have to introduce you to Kathy Belsky. She's going to be doing a show, Quantum. I can't remember the name of the damn show. She's going to kill me. Starting this Friday, I'll have to introduce it to y'all. She's out there in Hawaii, not far from the Solas, I believe. So which I haven't spoken to them either. I need to give them a holler and see what they've been up to. But so what I'm gonna do with you is I sent you my address on Skype. But you know what? Let me send it directly to your name. It'll be easier. And let me put it right there. And and then that way you got that. And then what I'm gonna do is, and probably maybe March. I think like the third week of March, I got an open date coming up. So I'll give you a call or I'll drop you an email.
Okay.
And maybe the third or fourth week of March, we'll get you back on. We'll get a little bit more into the Omniverse. If we got time, we'll get Mars. If we don't, a couple of weeks from then, we'll come back and talk about Mars. Because I have had a lot of people ask me to bring you on about Mars. And I have been saying I would, but you got other stuff going on. I want to get the new stuff out of the way first. Then we can get, we can break down the whole Mars base and routine and the whole 9 yards. That's a show by itself, you know what I mean? So we'll set that up for another time. But what I'm going to do is, guys and girls, be sure to check out Alfred. He's been a great friend over the years. He's been a blast to talk to. I've learned a lot from him in exopolitics over the years. He helped sponsor me and get involved in all the exopolitics. Actually, thanks to Alfred and Stephen Bassett, between the two of them, they probably introduced me to almost everybody who's anybody in ufology. Now, I'm not going to tell you how long ago this was because I don't want to give away our ages here, but it was a long time ago. We'll leave it at that. That's a nice way of saying it. But Alfred had a great time. You're always a fabulous guest. I always love having you.
Thank you so much.
You're always a wealth of information. But, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get out of here. Remember, his information is on the website on UFO Undercover. The archive will be posted in the next 15 minutes. I will also make it available on all of our other channels on YouTube not YouTube, on Facebook and Google and Twitter and LinkedIn and MySpace and whatever else the hell we're on. You'll get it all, and then, of course, it'll be available on iTunes and all the other archive venues as well. So on that note, I'm going to tell everyone thank you for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. Next week, we have Don Phillips coming back with the Paranormal TV Project. A week after that, I'll be doing some research